Hi, welcome to the Brick Filmers Guild podcast, hosted by us, the Four Monkeys. On this podcast, we had the extreme pleasure of chatting with Spencer Katz of mobdeli. Spencer is a professional cinematographer and brick filmer living in the New York City area. His YouTube channel, which was started in early 2007, has almost 7,000 subscribers and around 2.5 million views. His brick filming work includes commissions from the Lego Group and FAO Schwartz, and he's well known for his brilliant masterpiece, Egyptian Holiday. This podcast is sponsored by Stop Motion Explosion. Have you ever wanted to make your own brick film animation but don't know where to start? Stop Motion Explosion is a complete animation kit perfect for anyone who wants to start making their own brick films. Their kit includes a high-definition camera, easy-to-use software for Mac and Windows computers, a huge collection of sound effects, free video tutorials, and much more. Use the promo code GUILD30, that's GUILD 30, to get 30% off your animation kit order and fast free shipping at stopmotionexplosion.com. If you would like to help support our podcast, you can do so by becoming a Patreon supporter. Get podcasts at least a week before anyone else and other perks only available to our Patreon supporters. So, without further ado, here's our conversation with Spencer. Good afternoon, Spencer. Thank you so much for joining us today.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
It's really exciting for us to get to know the man behind mobdeli, mobile deli, all of the above.
Anything you want.
Awesome. Here, well, let's start with the name then. Where did that name come from?
So mobile deli. Basically, I was talking to my mom once about her college experience, and she told me that there was a service you could call where, let's say you wanted a sandwich and it was like 3 o'clock in the morning. They would have this, I guess you'd think of it as a food truck today, but back then it was like just a truck these guys rented, and they would make your sandwich in the back of the truck, and it was called the mobile deli.
Wow.
And I just thought that was the strangest 2 words I've ever heard put together, and made an account somewhere with mobile deli, and it's sort of become my catch-all handle on the internet. mobdeli, mobile deli.
Oh, that's awesome. So did you ever order from them?
I didn't, because that was like 40 years ago, 30 years ago, so I don't know if they're still operating. But
it's one of those food trucks now that you see.
I think it's like Grubhub or something like that.
Yeah, right. Something like that. But I just thought it was such a funny pairing of words, mobile deli. It's just, for some reason, the image it created in my head was like very strange to me.
Wow, such a long time ago. Actually, that's interesting. I bet it was delicious too.
It probably was. You know, you got that gasoline from the truck smell going on there.
Yeah, I like the smell of gasoline. I'm weird.
Sure.
And wait, where are you located? Where are you
I'm
from?
located right outside New York, in New Jersey, sort of near Newark, like 20 minutes from Newark, New Jersey. It's kind of where I was born and raised. I'm around that area. So I like it here. There's lawns, trees. You guys are from Georgia, right?
Well, not Dave is, and the kids are, but I am a fellow Yankee, or
okay.
Damn Yankee, as I'm referred to here. But I'm from Connecticut, so we're neighbors.
Great. Yeah, I was in Connecticut recently. It's nice up there too. That's where Lego is, right? Enfield. Oh no, yeah.
Enfield, yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I definitely spent a lot of time there. Not in the Lego,
really?
but in Enfield. So that was before they were there, or at least before I knew about them, really. But yeah, I definitely miss it. Yeah, it is beautiful. The 4 seasons, you know, instead of here where there's 2 seasons, hot and unbearably hot.
Yeah. So, that's great.
Yeah. So have you traveled outside of there or lived anywhere else?
Sure. Well, I lived in Manhattan for like 8 years and New Jersey for the rest, but I've traveled around, and I made a drive down to Disney World in Florida once.
Nice.
Or twice actually. and we drove through Georgia and stopped at like a couple barbecue places and I think maybe like a seafood place. But yeah, I love Georgia. I love sort of the southern states and the weather and the trees, and it's nice.
It's nice. It's hot.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny. I remember as a child driving to Florida to go to Disney World and stuff too. It was a long drive.
Yep. But it's fun. Once you get going, you're just going.
Yep, true.
Although nowadays we've got, we were playing music and all kind. I mean, the phone's got 5,000 songs, so you can just keep playing different music. I don't know if you guys had CDs or 8-tracks or what.
We read books.
No, I was just
8-tracks though. 8-tracks and books.
You mean a book on tape or
like a real book?
Oh God, I'd
with
be
like
sick.
words.
Well, no, so, like my mom would read or stuff like that.
That's nice. Yeah.
And I would be bored because I was just by myself and not a good car rider. So yeah, it was long. Anyway, I guess we'll get back to the
legit stuff.
Right.
Sure.
Your YouTube account was created in 2007.
But you weren't really making brick films then, is that correct?
Yeah. Well, I mean, my first Lego film was something I did with my friend back in probably middle school, I want to say. But I was just like, a webcam with just pointing at something on my desk and moving around a Lego. It wasn't anything serious. But I suppose the first, I guess 2007, yeah.
Okay. Well, let's step back a little bit to your
Sure.
your first brick film. Is that the one you shared with us, the Holocaust brick film?
That's the first sort of I don't want to say professional. No, the first
real attempt at a story.
Yeah, more than just like 30 seconds of somebody running around and flipping or something.
Mm-hmm.
And it ended up being like 13 minutes, I think.
Yeah, it's a good long one.
Yeah, that was quite a story, and then we noticed with some of the things the ACE at the end, which we actually had to look up.
Yeah, I think
so what does that mean?
Well, I'm pretty sure it's like the American Society. I don't know. That's ASC. Well, I know the ASC is the American Society of Cinematographers. Basically, I was obsessed with like movie credits when I was younger, and so I just like saw a lot of editors had ACE, something with Editors Academy of Editors or something. So I just put all those acronyms after my name and things to make it look cool, I guess.
We noticed all of your credits. They were actually really impressive. I mean, you went to a lot of trouble to do all that. It's like, wow, it's really, really impressive.
One of the notes I made was that you really went through a lot of effort with your titles and your credits.
Very professional.
That was probably one of the more professional-looking aspects of that film.
I'm pretty sure that was in the Movie Maker days.
Uh-huh.
Or maybe it was my early Premiere days, but when you don't have nice camera and nice footage, the only thing you can really do well is make titles. So I made titles a lot.
All right. And was this for an English class?
Yeah, it was for an English class. I'm pretty sure it was either based on a book we had to read about the Holocaust or something. I forget what the actual project was, but they said you can make a video, so I made a video. I said, awesome,
Yeah, that is
Excellent.
awesome. Yeah, that's a great way to... I hope you got an A.
I'm pretty sure I did. And then I remember actually I made a VHS dub for my teacher to show other classes. And I believe the next year when they showed it, she invited me to come in and show it to the next class.
Wow, yeah.
Looking back on it now, it's really hard to watch. Like, it's hard to get through. It's very low tech, and the voice acting is. You can hear when I like click the record button on and off.
I know, but it's neat looking back at the early stages because you've come so incredibly far since then.
One of the things I did notice is you had a very ambitious camera movement in there, even though you didn't have the skills really at that time. Your camera movement was very ambitious, and I got to give you credit for that.
Which part was that?
Oh, they're just different parts where the camera would move. A lot of the early brick films people make is just set the camera there, and hopefully it doesn't shake. And you were actually moving around, which later on comes really big into some of your films that you make. Your brick films, they're just beautiful camera movements. Is one of your
specialties.
Or your things that I noticed.
The secret is that I don't know how to animate characters moving. and looking cool. So I hide that with camera movement. That's my secret.
Oh, wow.
Okay, I just do some of that with the Oyo films that I've made, where it's like I'm trying to make everybody move, and it's hard to make 10 or 12 figures move. So if you move the camera, hey, everybody moves at the same time.
Exactly.
And a name I noticed a couple times popping up, I'm assuming this is a friend of yours, is Andrew Cinder. I like giving shout-outs for the grade school homies.
Yeah, he's a good friend from grade school. He actually was the first person I knew to use like After Effects.
Oh, wow.
And he was doing, I mean, it was still, we were like in 6th grade, so it wasn't anything Hollywood, but it was like making 3D like layouts and we tried to do like a Matrix bullet time scene once, where we had like a 3D revolution and had a CG element in there. So that was pretty fun. We made our first brick films together too. Him and a guy named Dan Hare. I recall being at his house in one of my earlier, 6th grade maybe, and he showed me a stop motion video he made of a car driving down his hallway and coming up to his bedroom door, and then the bedroom door appeared to open by itself because it was in stop motion, and that's when it sort of clicked, like, oh, this is something you can like create magic with this, because there was no handle bringing the door just opened by itself. How did that happen? And that really sort of is the first image I can remember of being captivated and just blown away by what you can do with pictures and making movies.
Well, that's awesome. And did you have any did you go to school for brick filming? Did you any theater?
Yeah,
not brick filming, but
Brick Film University.
Cinema, brick film. Yeah. BU.
I went to a film school in New York City called the School of Visual Arts. I studied live action cinematography and a little bit of directing. That's where I made, those years were where I made most of Egyptian Holiday. Originally, I thought I would get it done in like a summer, but for some reason I said I'll make a 9-minute Lego film for my first attempt, and it took me like over a year to make it. So I was doing it while I was at school and over the summer. But basically what I said was, there's a lot of good brick films out there. I was watching Zach Macias, or however you say his name, and other people, and they have great animation, but for some reason they appeared to be like Lego movies, and I wanted to make a movie that just happened to be with Legos. So like really focus on the cinematics of it and not necessarily the walk cycles or something.
Right.
So that was sort of my ambition, was to create like just a movie, but there happened to be Lego people in it.
It's fine. I mean, do we want to get into that now, since we're on the subject? I mean, we could talk to you pretty much all day about Egyptian Holiday. Anybody that's not familiar with either your channel name or your name, Spencer, you say Egyptian Holiday, oh wow, he's the one that did that. I mean, everybody knows that. It's absolutely brilliant.
That's so fun.
But yeah, so I mean, we're on it. We might as well. We can
jump,
we can bounce
around. We don't
have rules here.
Whatever you guys want.
The cinematography. It's funny that you mentioned that you wanted to make a movie, but it just happened to be with the Lego, because watching it, that's exactly what you think. You don't feel like you're looking at a brick film. It does. You forget that they're Lego, and you really just, the acting was actually really incredible, and cinematography. Obviously, I mean, you were just top notch there.
Thank you. The acting was some actor friends that I met while I was in school. So they're professionals. That's sort of what also I think elevates it from other brick films, where it's like the animator does the voice or somebody else. These people this is their life, is acting, and especially voice acting, these two guys that I found. So it was a lot of fun what we did. My school, luckily, they had like a recording booth for voiceovers or for ADR. So we went in there for a night for like 4 hours, maybe 5, and did the script sort of over and over again with all kinds of different enunciations and different line readings. And to be honest, I had way too much recorded. It was 4 or 5 hours of audio of just so many different variations. And in fact, the script changed quite a bit while I was animating it So some dialogue from later scenes I moved to earlier scenes, and so it's totally been mixed up and cut around to make it easier on myself in the animation process. I underestimated exactly how difficult it was going to be to do this.
Did you direct the voice acting and kind of coach them through any sort of roles to say the lines, or was it kind of everybody
let
was
them do
let
their
them roll?
thing?
Yeah, I was in the room with them, definitely directing them. We did so many takes though that I was like, try something crazy, or I could be very specific with what I was saying, or I could say, do something different. And a lot of times, I would say, make it bigger and be more of a caricature, because it was supposed to be, fun and weird and not like dramatic and, sad. It was, supposed to be a lot of fun. So I make your voice big, and, sometimes I would, for like the, what was his name? Oh man, I can't remember his name. The Egyptian guy from Egyptian Holiday.
Austin or Jeff?
Well, Austin and Jeff are the two
actors.
Actors, but I mean the character. What was his name? The guy who speaks in broken Egyptian.
Oh.
Well, either way, I would sometimes like impersonate or explain how I wanted these lines to sound that I had written, because it's not a language. I just made like weird words for them to say. But that was a lot of fun. We were doing all kinds of crazy things. And they also had a drum set in that room, so I was playing drums a little bit at the time. To like, take a break. It was a lot of fun. That was a long time ago now.
Yeah. The music for this, was this by a friend or an associate?
This is actually a pretty cool story. So, I believe there was a website or something where people who do music could like you could post jobs or post like need musician for score or something, and you would get applications to do it. And it must have been through a school. I forget which one, maybe one in the New York area, or maybe not, because I think this guy's from California. But anyway, so this person named Colin responded, and he showed me some samples, and I loved it. And he made the music for it, and we went back and forth for maybe couple weeks maybe, about, for this scene I want it to be like this, or it should get quiet here, or can you add a big crash of sound here? And that was all great. And then a couple years ago, he emailed me back saying like, hey, I just, was looking through my emails, and we worked on Egyptian Holiday together, and it was a lot of fun, and what are you doing now? And we've actually kept in pretty close touch, and he's done the music for a lot of my recent projects that I've been working on.
Wow, that's awesome.
So yeah, it's really great. Just like kind of sort of a small email back in the day for a little brick film, and now he's like a good collaborator of mine. So it's pretty cool.
Well, that sounds awesome.
It's hard to believe that it was that long ago, and that it that was like your first really big one, but yet that's something that most people could take years doing, to have that kind of.
Well, you don't
and
see
the
what
result
happened behind the camera. There was definitely probably a year maybe of just tests that I had to do, because for instance, I never made a brick film before Egyptian Holiday. I mean, I made that Holocaust video, but that was just with like a USB webcam and no lighting. So this was definitely the first brick film I ever made. And for some reason I thought, well, I'll probably shoot it in order, because that way I can keep track of like what I'm doing. So that opening shot with the sand and the scorpions and the camera tilting and zooming was the first thing I ever did.
Wow, that's a tough shot.
and the tripod I had was some sort of, like, I guess it was a photo tripod, but it didn't have, like the one I have now is the geared head tripod, where you can really finesse your camera move and not have to be loosening or tightening anything. It's got little knobs. But the tripod I had back then was just this like metal tripod. So to get the easing and the ease out of the camera move, I had to like knock it with my finger a little bit until it would move just a bit. And so I remember specifically doing that scorpion moving around in the sand. I would do that shot, and then somewhere in the middle of the camera move or the zoom, I would like screw up something and have to go back and like do everything again, like do the whole scorpion thing again and all the sand stuff. And I there was a couple times there where I was like, what am I doing? I've got like 100 pounds of sand on this big 4x8 piece of plywood in my garage. I'm sweating. There's so much light. Like, is this happening? What is this? And then, of course, the next shot where, there's like a dolly shot. But after that, where the guy jumps out of the truck, that took me probably just as long because it was the first time I had to animate like a character. And I remember I tried so many times to get the guy to like jump off the truck and have it not look like just to have it have the easing, the ease in and ease out.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know what I was doing, so I had to keep trying. I was like, what is going on here? And then eventually I saw Fancy Pants.
Yeah.
I believe it's XXX Fancy Pants or something like that.
Jordan.
Yeah, Jordan. He made that easing thing, and I was like, it clicked to me. So, and then he was on Bricks in Motion, and we started talking. I'm not really sure where he's been recently, but we talked for quite a bit.
Getting married, having a baby, life.
Oh, really? That's so nice. Really?
Yeah, really.
Oh, that's great. It makes me happy.
Us too.
That's great. But I recall, so I had done the beginning of Egyptian Holiday, and I was posting clips or frames and stuff on Bricks in Motion. And then there was a contest for, I think it probably was a THAC or 48-hour contest. I forget which one, where you had to have a character like freak out. So we were talking, and I was like, I bet we should do something, or I bet we can both do something, kind of like to challenge each other. And that's when I made Ham on Set. I went into my garage with my camera and just recorded me yelling a bunch of lines and kind of figured it out later what I was going to actually animate. But that was one of the first things I ever completed, I suppose, was the Ham on Set video.
Yes, it has. You finished that in 2010. I remember seeing it a long time ago, and the characters had so much dynamic feel to them, and a lot of it was your voice acting there. So it was really, really, really good video, and that was with some of the set pieces, obviously, that all the tan bricks you have for Egyptian Holiday, and I would imagine that was a lot of your Lego supply during that time was probably a lot of tan bricks. Does that sound right?
Yeah, that was. I'm fairly certain that was on the set that I was shooting, the long sort of pathway set from Egyptian Holiday. I think it's the same room. Mm-hmm. And I don't really remember. So I guess I know I had the Johnny Thunder sets back in the day. I love those sets, and I had this like pyramid that had the hieroglyphics on it. That set, but I'm fairly certain that I also went on eBay or somewhere and got like a bag of additional ones, and all the, I don't know what they're called. They're like 1x2 bricks, but they're kind of round in the middle, to make it look like they're sort of not masonry brick, but you know what I'm talking about?
I think I know.
They're like a divot in the middle. It looks like an 8 from the top. Yeah, I had a lot of those, and those looked really cool and Egyptian. But yeah, I had a big old satchel of tan bricks.
Yeah, we watched. It's neat looking back at your all the tests for Egyptian Holiday and the photos that you took, and it's kind of like even though the stop motion wasn't perfect back then, everything else
some
was.
Of the tests, but once he got to.
But it's like you went from the test of not being perfect to all of a sudden having this amazing perfect end result. It's like what happened somewhere in between. You must have had a lot of patience, a lot of practicing. Did you do a lot and research, like looking at YouTube videos and stuff? And
yeah, I definitely was watching a lot of the Bricks in Motion videos and talking to as many of the animators as I could in the chat room they had on Bricks in Motion. I used to hang out there quite a bit. I don't really know how I managed to pull it off, because it was just overwhelming to think about now, all these tests. Like I remember, so the first thing I did was I was going to animate it in like my kitchen with sort of like, you know what Kinects are, the other plastic toy. I was trying to make Connects dollies and stuff like that, and it was just not working. And actually, originally, the opening scene where they come, or the second scene where they're in the first chamber of the temple or whatever, was supposed to have like 30 other characters like digging. Like it was supposed to be a big site with like scaffolding and people digging and stuff like that. So I'm pretty sure I quickly abandoned that very, very quickly. I think what it really was the close focus filters that I got to allow me to get like close-up shots.
So like a macro lens?
Yeah, macro filters and figuring out exactly the techniques to light these kind of things that sort of brought it all together. Because what's great about these small-scale projects is you can have, like, have a couple big 1,000-watt lights, and they become like huge compared to the small characters. So you can create lighting effects and light techniques that if you were to do it with people, you would need professional Hollywood gear. So I know a lot of people use desk lamps and things like that, which is great for when you're figuring out what you're doing. But if you're trying to make it look cinematic, you need to have a larger source. And what I also do is I stop down my camera lens to as deep as I can get. So because the macro filters, your depth of field, which isn't what's in focus, is so small where like the minifigure's head, the front of it would be in focus, but the back wouldn't be in focus, and you have it just looks, it doesn't look cinematic or the way Hollywood movies look. So I would like put all this light, so much light onto the sets, and then stop my lens way down. And so once I figured out sort of how to do all this together, I think the animation or the look of it kind of came together. And what I would also do is, what I still do is, because I have so much light and it's stopped way down, it's so dark by that point. So I have a very long shutter speed. So the camera shutter is open for over a second for each picture. So a lot of times I'm just like sitting there waiting for the shutter to close, and I get so bored. Yeah. But I mean, all those things together combine to make, I think, a pretty good quality image. Lots of hot light.
Well,
yeah, the lighting was beautiful. It had a very realistic feel. With the light streaming in from the outside, or just the lights of the torches, looked great. Do you film this in your garage on a 4x8 plywood?
Yeah, that's where the first scene was, the big opening scene, and then I made the smaller set and the set after that where they're in the long hallway room walking to the jewel. And then there's that scene where the floor is rising, which I swear, I wish that I had more pictures and video of how I did that, because it was just, it was so crazy. So I'm trying to remember, it was a long time ago now. But I had the floor built, maybe I used like 10 bricks high, so it wasn't on the table, it was higher up. And then I had the wall was like a half, like an outline. It wasn't like attached, it was separate, the wall. And then the wall was stacked on like hundreds of pieces of printer paper. And for each picture I would pull out another piece of paper.
Wow. And
so the wall would be going down while they went up. But so the problem that I ran into, because I mean, to me, brick filming is all about cheating. Wherever you can, use a technique or do a trick so you're not having to, animate every single second. So sometimes when the character does a move, you take 10 pictures in a row to hold that move, so it's not constantly moving. But with this technique, I couldn't do that. I couldn't like take a picture and extend it for 2 seconds. I had to time all this out on paper and in my head, so every frame had to be animated. And I just remember being in that situation with these I had paper all over the place. When I would pull paper out, I would throw it away. Like, get it out of my sight. Each paper. So it's all over the floor. And I got, there's still like grains of sand from earlier all over the place because you can't get rid of sand. It gets everywhere. And I just remember that was another time where I was like, what am I doing? Is this going to be anything? I don't know. It's just crazy.
That was one of my favorite scenes. It just had so much
my favorite
energy
too.
There. It's like, so the floor stayed level, but the walls were moving, but it gave you the impression that the floor was rising.
Yeah, because I also then had chains as if they were pulling the floor up. Mm-hmm. And so whenever I would move the wall down, I would kind of make sure the chain moved as well.
Wow.
Or not moved, but came down as well. Mm-hmm. But so that was mostly in my garage. But then I had to go back to school, and I brought some pieces with me. I figured I would keep animating. So sometimes I would rent or sign up for use of one of the school studios overnight, and I would bring my Legos and my camera, and I would just sort of grab some lights and do a shot or two, whatever I could get done before I had class the next day. And that's where I did the spider sequence and maybe a little bit, a couple other little bits, but that actually was improvised, the spider scene. I don't really remember what the plan was, but I added that scene like on a whim, the running away from the spiders sequence.
Yeah, that was an amazing
Was the
scene.
spider attached to the wall, or was the wall on the ground and you just were doing tricks with the camera?
You mean when it crawls by
up
the top?
above him, yeah.
It was probably attached to the wall.
Okay, with like sticky tack or blue tack. Okay.
Yeah, it was probably something like that. But for the rest of those shots, the floor typically would stay still, and I'd move the walls past the character. And then the spiders as well. I'm trying to remember exactly. Yeah, so for the spiders, okay, so there's this one shot where the camera's like moving over the floor as the spiders crawl towards the camera. And so I had like the floor moving at like 2 studs per frame, and then the spiders I'd move at 1 stud per frame, so they would be moving a little bit faster. It was just like lots of movement, you know. I don't. And so I just remember bringing my duffel bag full of Legos and sort of having to do this stuff one shot at a time whenever I can get studio time at my school. You know, I'm still thinking like, why did I do all this? This is crazy.
Well, then you look at the end result and you go, oh, that's why I did it. Mm-hmm. It was worth it.
Well, I'll tell you what else makes it worth it. To this day, maybe every 2 days, I get another like comment on Egyptian Holiday on YouTube. And it's always somebody like, oh, I love this. Check out my videos. You know, you've inspired me, or I like, how did you do this? And I just like, there's something so satisfying, so exciting about getting a comment like that from somebody who's probably young and figuring out their place in the world. And it's cool to be someone that people are like, wow, looking up to, kind of in a small way, you know.
Yeah, it's absolutely brilliant. It has a very Indiana Jones feel to it, and a very realistic feel to it, which I really love.
That's great.
So you entered this in a film festival in New York City?
Well, I entered it into my school's film festival. Mm-hmm. Are you talking about like the audience?
The audience response.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that screened. So basically, they had 2 departments at my school. There was like the live action department and the animation department, which included like hand drawn animation, computer animation, stop motion. And I really wanted to get my film to be screened then. But they sort of said, like, well, you're not in this department. Eventually, they let me do it, and I recorded the audience reaction because I thought that was so cool. And I think I saw that on another DVD. Possibly it was like the Grindhouse movie with Robert Rodriguez. I think they have audience recordings, or some movie does. So I recorded the audience reaction, and now that you mention it, it also entered into a film festival, the like New York Film Festival, which sounds really big, but it's just called the New York Film Festival. Like you can call it anything you want, and it screened there as well. And so this is a little dirty secret. The audience recording you're hearing, I just sort of put both audience recordings on top of each other into the audio track. So it's two theaters worth of audience recordings.
Oh, how funny.
That's okay. We won't tell.
Yeah, it's okay. Just a little secret.
But that must have been a really neat experience for you to have people watching your film,
yeah, it was amazing. That's one of my fondest memories is everyone's laughing at these weird jokes, and when the characters look at the camera, for some reason everybody laughs like so hard at that. I don't know why. And all the weird, like when the spiders run by. So he's having this big chase, and then he like stops, and the spiders just run by, and there's like quiet for a moment. That always gets such a funny laugh there. So I just love hearing all this. It's really satisfying.
And that has 750,000 views.
Yeah, I think it's kind of odd that it has more views than the both the cuts. And you have a director's cut and an Egyptian. The regular one is the only difference. A curse word that's not in one, or is it a little different?
Yes, that's the only difference. So, like I was saying, the spider sequence I added later, so I had to call back the actor that I knew to come record some lines. And we were having a little fun with it. I thought it was funny to put in that word. And then I remember somebody from Bricks in Motion had been like, you should put like that there's foul language in this. And I thought, yeah, maybe that wasn't like the best idea for this venue, for this context. So I uploaded a separate one where I cut that part out.
Okay.
But people laugh at that. Adults laugh at that. I don't know.
It was pretty mild. It was pretty mild anyway. I think both of them are pretty tame for any audience, but one is slightly cleaner.
Yes.
One of the comments I noticed, I think it was on Animation 1-1 on your YouTube comment, described your video, your test video as silky smooth. What frames per second are you shooting?
I always do 24 frames per second. That's since the beginning.
And that's not on twos. That's full 24 frames per second.
Yeah, that's full 24 frames per second, which has caused lots of problems in my life, and I have nightmares still of moving characters and just the smallest little increments. But yeah, it's always 24 on ones, as often as Sometimes, like I was saying, also when a character like finishes putting their hand up or something, you take a bunch of pictures just to hold it there.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone does that. I do that a lot. But it's always 24.
Well, it works.
So. Have you explored any other frame rates, or is that pretty much it?
Well, I think tried 15 at some point, but I couldn't do it. It just came out looking maybe too slow, or it's a whole different kind of concept with a smaller frame rate. What positions you put the character have to be more thought out, I think, because you have less frames to work with. So you can't sort of just kind of go with the flow with how you're animating. You have to kind of know, for walk cycles particularly, you have to have the arms out and the arms in. Whereas with 24, because it's like a little bit smoother, or you have more frames to play with, you can kind of you don't have to be so specific with where your keyframes are.
Hey, don't mess with perfection, Yeah. It works for Kevin, it works for you, so hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
I've tried 24 a few times. It's kind of tough.
Yeah.
I wish I could do the 24 on twos and make it look good. There's a few animators that know how to basically animate 12 frames a second and make it look beautiful. I can't stand it when I try that. 15 works fine for me, but 24 is a pain.
Yeah, that's great. I don't know how to do that either, 24 on twos. I think you'd have to be even more specific with exactly what positions you're going to use.
Exactly. So have you gotten all the sand out of your garage?
I believe so. There is still some on the floor when you walk on it. You hear a little crunch still, but that could just be the dust and debris from years of, being in a garage.
And I guess your parents were real cool about you doing that.
I don't know why, but yes, they were. They helped me buy the camera, and which I still use every day, that camera. I love that camera. And I said, I'm buying a bunch of sand today from Toys R Us. They're like, all right. Yeah, it was great.
So is that a Canon 7D?
Yeah, Canon 7D, and I use old Nikon lenses. Mm-hmm. Although the first shot in Egyptian Holiday there's a zoom out, so I had to use the Canon. It comes with like a kit lens, at 35 to 100 something. Man, that was just crazy. When you're zooming that thing out, it's like a barrel. You have to turn, but it's not smooth. It's like sticky. So every time, for every frame, I have to like constantly be trying to figure it out. Oh man. And then also, I just remember now, that has a sort of automatic aperture on that lens. And when you're zoomed in, it's at like a 5.6. And when you're zoomed out, it's like at a 2 something. So I had all these problems the first couple weeks of like, why is the exposure changing when I'm zooming out? I couldn't figure it out on this lens until I finally sort of read about it, I suppose, and figured out you have to be at a manual constant aperture. With these lenses, it's just such a nightmare.
Okay. Are you still you use drag and stop motion, correct?
Yep.
And are you still using Final Cut Pro, or are you on to the Adobe Cloud, Creative Cloud?
No, Final Cut Pro 6.5 or something for me.
Okay, and how do you do your compositing? Is that with After Effects, or? So
it is now. It's with After Effects now, but back then it was with Final Cut Pro 6 point something, where I would basically. I'm pretty sure in Egyptian Holiday, for instance, there really isn't any compositing. There might be a couple times where I had to paint something out, but
like the axe throw. Or that was a test.
From the animation test, I think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my first time trying to do a masking thing.
And that was masking with camera movement, which is a little bit more difficult than just masking.
Yeah.
And that was did you use like a Photoshop to paint that out, or did you try the masking in Final Cut?
Well, I definitely did not have Photoshop back then.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure I used the Final Cut Pro, the 8-point garbage mat, and I used a bunch of them.
Okay.
And it probably crashed a few times on me. But nowadays I've sort of figured out After Effects, and for instance, there's the video I made with the music video with the kid Can't Stop Building, which is a lot of camera tricks and stitching and compositing and all kinds of crazy stuff. Alpha mats, luminance mats,
that one's a crazy video.
Yeah, that pretty much that broke me. That video, I gotta be honest. But that's a whole other topic we can get to later if you like.
Sounds good. Okay, I think we. One last thing I've noticed is you like to shoot or present your videos in, was it 2.35 to 1 aspect ratio? That's CinemaScope?
Yes, it is.
Okay, I haven't done any of that. Is that you just shoot in 16:9 and then just mask it or crop it out with black bars?
I don't have anamorphic lenses, but so I would just use a spherical lens and then crop it out. Yeah.
Okay. Well, it definitely gives a better cinema feel on something I don't mess with, and I probably should, but it makes it look more like film.
Right.
And
I remember being younger and taking my video camera to film a Mother's Day event with my family or a barbecue or something, and I would put it in widescreen then too. So it's been my whole life that I've been a widescreen fan.
Yeah, that's one thing I did notice, even on your 6th grade Holocaust, it was 16:9 ratio. It was stretched, but it was still 16:9.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not sure if that was intentional, looking at it right now, but it just got stretched out in the compression. But shortly thereafter is when I started. Everything is in widescreen. Everything.
All right.
But that becomes very difficult because, so for instance, in a lot of these videos, that makes your frame wider. So you have to build like way more set out there. It's good because a lot of times you don't want to show the ceiling in these shorts because you've got no ceiling. And in fact, in the Egyptian Holiday, in that scene where they're in the rising room, I did have a ceiling, and that just, what was I thinking? But so with shooting in widescreen, you can make the set wider, and it doesn't look as cramped because you can't show the ceilings and things like that. So it became, I like using it, but it also makes your set have to be that much bigger because you can see like 30% more in either direction.
Well, I love seeing ceilings in brick films. You don't see it very much because it's kind of hard to light your set. But you pull it off in several of them, and it's beautiful. I love it.
Well, there's a trick I used in one of the Star Wars videos, and it only works because the camera is not moving. But so I shot it's like a long hallway on the Tantive, however that's pronounced, from episode 4, where they're running down the hallway. And there's a ceiling in that shot, but the ceiling was added after the fact, so I would shoot the scene with no ceiling, and then I would put the ceiling on for like a frame and take a longer exposure because it got dark, so it would be brighter, and then sort of stitch it together.
Oh, wow.
But, that way, I mean, you can't even get your hands in there to move the characters if you've got a ceiling on, so you gotta do all kinds of little tricks to do that.
Wow, these are awesome tips for everybody. Nice to know.
Cool.
I'd love to draw some diagrams or have some sort of techniques, YouTube videos of little tricks like this, but they take a long time to set up and things like that.
But I want to get to some of your Lego commission videos, but before we get there, I kind of want to go into some of your live action stuff. A couple of them were done before any professional training, and I kind of dug those. Let's see if I can find where I have it here. It was your the one with the killer car, and then the astronaut one.
Right.
Let's see. Those were called. Where were they?
Attack of the Killer Automobile.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was called like Blast Off or something like that.
Blast Off, yeah.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah, okay.
And you put those on your YouTube channel in 2009, and it looks like you had your whole family participating in this one.
Pretty much. Yes, in both of them, which maybe wasn't the best idea, but it worked out. That was in my first and second year of film school. And in fact, the 2009 upload date, I think I re-edited it later on, because I did that in 2007 for my freshman year of college in film school. But that was great. We shot on 16mm Bolex camera, black and white film for the Blast Off video. Mm-hmm. And in fact, that helped me out. That taught me a lot. So basically, the biggest lesson I've learned in my professional life here is how to tell a story without dialogue. It's very difficult to convey something without someone like saying what it is in movies, or it's become difficult today because we've been so reliant on characters kind of just over-explaining things. But with Blast Off, the assignment was to just do a silent film. So you have to sort of figure out how you're going to show all these emotions and images and concepts without somebody talking about it. And that helped me so much with my commissioned Lego work, because a lot of that stuff, there's no dialogue, and you have to sort of get stories and concepts across without somebody saying, now we're going to go to the store, or whatever the scene is. But Blast Off was a lot of fun. I had my film crew from school. We had dollies and lights and film cameras, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
and so you shot that on film, not video then, correct?
Yes, that'd be on 16mm.
16mm. Is that and same true for Attack of the Killer Automobile?
No, Attack of the Killer Automobile was shot on the HVX camera from back then. A big brother of the DVX camera.
Okay.
24p was a big thing. Everyone was like, whoa! So we used that. That was my old car, that Volvo. I got that car as like a hand-me-down. I had it all through high school and most of college, and it was like an extension of my life, that car. I love that car very much. And that car, first of all, I think it was from like 93 or something, so it was real old. And when you're on the highway or something, you're going as fast as you can. You're going like 60 miles an hour. So it was a real good car for a young high school kid who just got his license to have. But I used to like live in that car. Me and my friends would drive around everywhere, and it was so much fun.
Cool.
Yeah,
cool.
no, that was a very interesting video, and it's funny. Dave and I were watching it yesterday, and during this one part, which I don't really want to give it up, but we weren't expecting it. It was just kind of like we were both like, whoa, because there's this one part, one scene. I don't want to give with the girl in the car. With the window.
Oh, the window.
With the window.
Yeah.
And we were not expecting that, so I was like, whoa. Just kind of funny.
I love that final shot of the window with the aftermath on the window and the car is just driving around. I thought it was so funny.
That was great.
Yes. Yeah.
And Blast Off, by the way, was a lot of fun. I mean, definitely got the whole story there, and I guess your brother, he did a great job.
Yeah, that's my brother.
It was adorable.
He used to hate when I would put him in movies. But as a result now he's a very charismatic, funny person. He does improv and all kinds of other sort of acting type things. He's not an actor, he's an engineer now. But he has a personality like that. I like to think I have a little credit for forcing him to be in so many of my movies when I was younger.
Well, maybe because when he was doing, the whole moon takeoff thing, the engineer, it obviously got those juices flowing, right?
Yeah. Definitely.
Well, you always gotta develop the things that you don't have God-given talents for. It's like us in podcasting. We're not the greatest podcasters, but we keep going at it to try to get better and better.
You guys are pretty good.
Oh, well, thanks.
It's all about the guest.
it's the guest,
yeah,
and doing a lot of research to try to wind the guest up so they can talk. So you got into some big boy projects.
You have a lot of live action
stuff.
Were just as enjoyable. You're a brilliant cinematographer as well as brick filmer.
Thank you.
This is erstwhile. Is that how you'd say that?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, one of the things I noticed in that, I love the lighting, the full pool effects, and the walking down the road. Did you have extra lights?
We had.
So it looks like it's in the dark, but you always got to light it, even if it's in the dark.
Yeah, we had a bunch of lights. No, I mean you always want to have, when you're on a film set with a low budget, you're always like, I wish we had more equipment. So we did make do with what we had, but we had a bunch of lights to simulate the sort of moonlight and the atmospheric lights and things like that. But so to me, with Erstwhile, the reason why I like the way it looks so much is because we used the ARRI Alexa camera for that, which is a pretty big, high quality camera. And where a lot of movies today make this mistake, I think, is they use the highest quality, sharpest lenses. And when you combine the high quality sharp lenses and the high quality sharp digital cameras, it just looks very sterile and clinical, and it doesn't have any a heartbeat to it, the images. So excuse me, for that movie we used these old German lenses. They're I think they're called Balthars or something. They're from, I want to say, the 70s maybe. And they give it this, they're imperfect, and they have a texture and a roughness to them, and it creates a sort of more timeless image to me than these super quality, crisp films we see today, like Transformers or something, where they use all the best equipment. It just kind of looks very clean and not a lot of texture. And so for instance, in some of the shots where you can see a light fixture or a light bulb in Erstwhile, there's a little bit of a highlight, a blooming effect around it, like a halo, and that's, they used to get that effect in old movies by putting a stocking or a filter in front of the lens to have the light go through this mesh, and it would create these highlight effects. But so I really like those in movies, so I try to do that wherever I can now.
Okay.
Yeah, and the acting there, they seem professional. Was this something that you were commissioned to do, or were these friends?
So it was a friend from film school who had another friend who wanted to make a film, and so she recommended me to be the cinematographer. And we made a couple films together. And so yeah, they were definitely, as professional as you can be when you're a child or a kid actor, but they were actors, for sure.
Yeah, no, yeah. It was beautiful.
Let's see.
Yeah, it's a nice little film.
One of the names I saw pop up a few times, and I'm starting to think perhaps there's a friend of yours, is Michael J. Sassano. Is that because
Yes,
he was your assistant on a couple of where you were the cinematographer?
Mm-hmm. Yep, he's a friend from college, Mike Sass, and he's an editor and a skateboarder. We used to hang out all the time and just like talk about movies, and he would help me edit some of the films I was making, and he's just a great all-around cinematic, guy.
So you ever helped out on any brick films, or that's not his thing?
He would help out in ways like, I need to build 20 of these things. Can you help me out? Or, being an extra pair of hands, but not like animation or anything like that. He has a skateboarding background, so he and his friends would make skate videos when they were younger. So he's got lots of hands-on, like, problem-solving, low-fidelity tricks to get cool-looking images. And when you don't have money when you're younger, you have to be creative. So he's got all kinds of, his whole backstory, his whole history is, making cool shots for skateboarding and things like that. So he's great. I love Mike Sass. I haven't talked to him in a little bit now because he's back in upstate New York where he's from.
Yeah, okay. It's funny we're mentioning skateboarding because some of his Spencer's movements of the Lego figures, you said kind of the way they balanced looked like he was familiar
there was
with
someone trying to catch their balance in one of the shots, and it seems like you've skateboarded or surfed or something in your life. It had that sort of out of balance, trying to get my balance type feel to it.
Where was that, you think?
I don't remember which one it was.
I remember seeing it,
Let's
too.
See if I wrote it down.
Maybe it was from the Adventures of Max in the Hero Factory.
That's probably it, yeah.
It was Max, yes it was.
Yeah, excellent. That was the first commission project that I had from Lego.
We'll get there real quick. I just wanted to touch up on a couple more things in your live action stuff. You've done some cinematography for a director, Francesca Coppola. Francesca.
Yeah, Francesca. She was the friend who recommended me to the girl who did Erstwhile.
Okay. And one of the things I did notice, I think of at least the two, I think it was a Portrait of a Family. No, was that? No, that wasn't. It was Johnny Come Lately and Flamingo one.
Yes.
You shot film for those ones, is that correct?
Yes, we did. 16 millimeter.
And it had a very film grainy kind of feel to it, but that was purposeful. What she saw and the direction she wanted to go with it, and
yeah, she loves film. Mm-hmm. Part of that grain might be because I was a little bit inexperienced when I was doing that, and maybe could have exposed it a bit better. But they're definitely, you want the texture, the grain, the feeling that comes with film, where because of the way the chemicals on the film work, every frame is a unique combination of the chemicals. So that's where like sort of the grainy and imperfections come from, is all of these analog techniques and textures.
Now, is she related to the famous Coppolas?
I do not think so. Last name only, although she is Italian and from Italy.
And did you go to Italy to shoot the
Yes.
Yeah, the Flamingo.
We went to Italy where she was from, and we shot around there, and that was such an amazing experience. The craziest thing about it was just I was the only person who didn't speak Italian on the set. So there's lots of, not like necessarily a language barrier, but just lots of things you take for granted when you're communicating with people in a working environment that are difficult, and they have their own ways of doing things, like for instance, their outlets on their walls are like different than in America. So it's like, from the first step of the process, it's like, I don't know what this thing is or how to use it. So you have to really rely on your crew and your team to, help you and to work together to make it work.
And you did some live action for the Sci-Fi Channel.
Yes, that's a little more recent. That's through the Tongle website. Where companies come to Tongle and try to find people to do things for their projects. And so I applied for some of those jobs, and I got them. Those are a lot of fun because they're really short, and it's not like you're taking a year out of your life to do them. Those are done in mostly like a weekend. Mm-hmm. Although the Armageddon one, which I don't think has aired yet, I'm not quite sure. I had to build all of those buildings made out of cardboard boxes and strips of paper to make the window panes. So I actually contracted my mother to assist me, and she spent many nights cutting and gluing with me. But it's a lot of fun, and I hired some special effects people from a friend of a friend who apparently they worked on like Baby Driver and movies like Creed. So these guys are, in the business, and we blew up all these buildings for one afternoon. It was really crazy.
Yeah, that was real fun.
I kind of freaked out when I saw the 31 Days of Halloween with the girl coming out of the TV.
Yeah,
because I remember seeing that, watching and seeing that commercial or whatever you would call it. I was like, "Oh my God, I remember that! I can't believe you did that."
You did? You saw it on TV?
Yeah.
Wow, I had no clue that they ever actually aired that.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
so
I saw because
awesome.
as soon as I saw it, because that's kind of freaky. You remember something like that? I was like, I've seen that. I've actually seen that on TV, and I cannot believe. I was like, wow, I can't believe you did that. It's just wild.
Wow, that's so cool.
That was amazing. Yeah.
And
that was a lot of fun. That project.
Mm-hmm. And those were done through Tongle. Were any of your Lego commission videos through Tongle?
They were not. Sometimes I'll apply for them, but I don't get them.
Okay.
But no, the Lego ones were all done through Lego contacting me.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
Tongle's doing themselves a disservice not hiring you. They hired us once, and it was kind of a cool experience.
What kind of project was that?
It was it was something with the Lego City Police sets, and they sent us a bunch of.
Yeah, nice to get the Lego.
Yeah, free Lego.
Yeah,
cool.
I love that.
I mean, it was okay. It didn't do well in I think it got in the bottom of the prize winnings. So we got the lowest prize.
Yeah, but we got free Lego.
Yeah.
Oh, so that was a couple years ago.
It would have been 2012 probably. Yeah.
Yeah, that was
so they've
quite a while ago.
changed their I guess business model since then. They don't really have that kind of tiered system anymore. Because I remember that too, where you would have first place or third place, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, so I think now they just sort of have either you get it or you don't.
Okay.
But you still get free Lego.
Yes, I think you do.
Exactly.
It's like the best
That,
part.
I got to tell you, we'll get there, but that was the best part about working with Lego. Just so much Lego.
Because it seemed the second you started doing the commission videos, your collection exploded.
Yes, that's a very...
And sometimes
yes, that's a
literally
good
on
word to
some of
use
these
it.
things, yeah.
Yeah.
So now I'm living in the aftermath of the debris piles everywhere.
Wow. Yeah, I think I noticed like two versions of the pet shop. One with the name taken out, so I didn't say pets. But yeah, you've got just tons of those modulars, and then just bricks galore.
So you have...
although I'm still missing the Cafe Corner and Greengrocer, so if anyone knows a cheap deal out there, hit me up.
You come borrow ours.
Yeah.
You got those guys?
Yeah, we bought the I think the Cafe Corner from Gareth Pugh,
okay.
Spuggastu, and the other one we bought Greengrocer when it came out. That was one of my favorite ones they made. It's a really good set.
Yeah, I love that one.
My only complaint for brick filming is you just can't take walls out easy. They're more for the outsides of buildings. It's not really brick filmer friendly.
It's very true. They're facades for me, Although I do have that Market Street one, the first one. People talk about that one a lot too.
Is that the bluish one? Yeah, that's the one I don't have.
Yeah, that one, people question if it's officially a modular because it came out. I think someone designed that, like a fan designed that. In their early software, Lego software days. But I got that one. But then I think they call it the Dark Ages, where you don't play with Legos anymore, and you go away to college or something. And so I wasn't building Lego when Cafe Corner and Greengrocer came out. And now they're thousands of dollars.
Oh, wow.
Good to keep, though, yeah. That's why.
Yeah, I keep my boxes, too, or at least most of them. But
oh, really? Yeah, I have a pile of boxes, too. I don't know what I'm doing with those. But
they're in the attic. They're probably just
exactly.
turning to dust up there. So, you know.
All right, so we'll get into the Lego commission videos, which you have a little over a dozen of those that have 35 to 40 million views on the Lego channel.
Wow.
Yeah, tons.
That's cool.
Yeah,
that's so cool. Fun.
And they were all just absolutely spectacular.
And you said your first one was The Adventures of Max Hero Factory? Does that sound right?
That was the first one.
Where was that shown? Was that like on a social media or on a TV channel, or because you have it on your own channel right now?
Yeah, I don't actually. So I'm not sure if I'm allowed to like upload the videos that I made for them, but for some reason that one I did. I'm thinking back on it now. Why? I think I maybe asked like Dave Pagano or something. Like, am I allowed to upload this? And he says, I do. So I thought, okay.
He usually waits a year or two.
Yeah, I think once you've waited a certain amount of time, it's fine.
Okay, maybe I'll upload some of these to my channel because I'd love to talk about them with people. But so the Max one is one of the only ones that I used little LED lights too in the scenes.
Okay.
Like in some of the panels, like in the beginning, you can see some LED lights. I don't really remember why I had those. Maybe I bought them, but that just like wires all over the set. It's just another element, not to drives you crazy.
The Adventures of Max are always so enjoyable. He's such a cute character, and
well, so that video played on their Lego Club TV show, where they would have, I think it was maybe like a 10-minute episode every 2 weeks or something like that, with a guy named Scott Decotu, or Decotau, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, who was like the creative director, I believe, for some aspect of Lego, and he would host the show and welcome back, Lego viewers, to Lego Club videos, and he would show different animations or different, I think they had some interviews with like people who make Lego sculptures. It was a nice show for kids to see all kinds of cool Lego things you can do. It's pretty fun.
And they give you the stories for these, and then you animate to their storyboard? Or how do they...
Yeah, typically they would... I mean, every video is kind of different, but typically they would say, we're going to have Max in the Hero Factory. He gets... They probably said something like he gets involved in the assembly line and ends up building a large Hero Factory model that looks like him. That kind of outline.
Okay.
And then you can kind of give them a sort of basic storyboard of what you're going to do, so that way there's no like big surprises like, whoa, you added this weird, element. And then you kind of just, at least with me, you would animate your shots and send them in, and then any problems, you'd make a change, but usually they'd be like, looks great, man. Keep going.
Cool.
And
they're
really friendly.
2 of those Max videos? Does that sound right?
Yes. 2 of those Max videos.
Okay. One of the shots that I really liked was the rooftop chase. I think it was in the second one. And I think you were moving 3 different layers, so that had the depth perception of the back
parallax.
Yeah. I liked your use there, and I think you used it really well in one of the Monster Fighter ones with the train scene, where the backgrounds were moving at different rates.
Did you say in the monster video?
The monster one, I think the one with the train.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then
you're kind of breaking up a little bit.
Oh, okay.
Are we?
Oh.
Not sure if it's my fault or whose fault.
You still sound good to us.
Okay, great.
It'll sound good for the recording. That's the good thing about using the mic this way.
Great, yes,
and if you break up, we'll let you know.
Okay.
The cloud.
But yeah, I did do a sort of parallax, 3 layers of things moving for those shots. I'm looking at it now, actually, on the rooftop scene, and it's kind of like, it could have been a little better. But, it's, it was a learning process, and...
Was the camera stationary and the sets were moving, or a combination of all 3? Or everything
moving? For most of my early Lego films, the camera was stationary, and I would move the set wherever possible. Later on, I sort of changed my technique to move the camera, but for these shots, the camera's still, and the sets are moving by, and I'm pretty sure for this parallax shot in the rooftop scene that it's another example of a little bit of a cheat, where I kind of took a picture for some of the background buildings and just kind of dragged it across the screen in Final Cut instead of moving it.
Okay.
But everything else is definitely real. You know, I don't use any CGI or anything.
Do you ever chroma key?
Oh, yeah. Especially later on in my videos. The early ones, I did not. So, like this one, the Max ones, most of the bric-a-brac bunch videos that I made probably don't have much, if any, chroma keying. I mean, I use some things where if there's like a thing holding up a character or something, I'll make a color that I can pretty easily get out, like a rig or a mask. But usually I don't from scratch like composite objects in. Mm-hmm. But there is so I did a Star Wars video, and there's some chroma keying in there with some spaceships, but you have to do that for a space scene. But all the spaceships are shot on rigs and moving, and I try to have them move as much as possible and not just be a still image, that you're manipulating.
Mm-hmm. You had a lot of neat flashing strobe effects like lightning in the monster fighters. How did you accomplish that?
Yes, they actually they said when I was giving them the videos, they're like, okay, maybe it's too much lightning now. You can take it easy. But I had a couple of the Home Depot like floodlights that they use when you're making like an addition in your house or fixing something, the big lights. And I kind of just positioned them behind the camera and just turned them on every now and then at different levels. They have like two settings, the high and the low. But so that's another example, like the Egyptian holiday room with the rising floor, where I couldn't just take a bunch of pictures when a character stopped moving and drag out pauses. I had to kind of plan for them because the lightning had to be done in kind of like real time in a way. So I had this big couple 1,000-watt lights. Just every now and then I'd turn them on, get a couple pictures. It was a lot of fun actually because you can make each lightning strike a bit different, and you can have fun with that.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Did you have any trouble with the net capture of Frankenstein?
Oh man, yeah, I'm pretty sure I did that backwards.
I'm
pretty sure I started with the net on the guy and then removed it.
Okay.
Because a lot of times I do that a lot. I'm always reversing stuff because a lot of times the end frame has to be very specific. And I don't know about you guys, but when I'm animating, the characters do what they want. Like you'll try to say I have to get them to land here, but the way it's easing in and out, you're not going to make it, and they have to stop here instead. So
got to nail your landing.
Yes, and a lot of times
start at the end.
It's very difficult to do that. So
another thing that made me laugh, I think all the rats in that video meowed like a cat.
Which one's that?
I think it was the part 2 of the Monster Fighters. I think the rats, every time they pop on the screen, it'd be a meow instead of a rat squeak. It just made me laugh.
Okay, that's funny. They do all the sound for their videos, so I actually didn't realize that.
Oh, okay.
You have to watch it. It's a brilliant video.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have watched it with the sound, but
I love that you get out of not having to do the audio. That's awesome.
Yeah, although I did do audio for some things, Egyptian holiday. That's about it, actually.
Okay.
But and in fact, there's a little secret back in Egyptian holiday for a second. At the end, when the character is outside with his bottle of wine, there's like a desert wind sound effect, and it's just me going like. So I did a bunch of that. I love little sounds like that. Oh, and I actually did the sound for the FAO Schwartz video.
That seemed like there was some missing in that one. It seemed like there needed to be more or like music added, and then like when they were playing the piano.
Yes, exactly. So basically what happened was that was a commission for their Manhattan FAO Schwartz, which I don't know if it's even there anymore. But they had a Lego section which looks like the set that I built. It's got like pipes and a conveyor belt and it was supposed to, or it did play on their in-store TV screens, with no sound though. So I had to do some sound, and I don't know why, but there wasn't any sound when they played it. But the piano section was something they were going to handle because it was going to be the song from Chopsticks from Big when they go to FAO Schwartz. And they play the dun 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 dun, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I actually never recorded that, so they were going to do that, but as a result, it's just an empty gap now.
Did you design that entire scenic yourself and build it yourself, or did you have any help?
Yes, I did. That was all myself.
Oh, and wow!
That was probably my second project with them, if I recall correctly. Yes, that was my second video I made with Lego, and I had, I was living in New York at the time. Going to college. I think that was right after I graduated college. So I had my apartment, but I had a roommate in my apartment, but we shared like the smallest apartment you've ever seen. It was 1 bedroom, and I guess you'd call it a living room, but it also was like where you walk in when you open the door. So it was like you couldn't put anything in there. So we had a bed in each room, but I had sort of taken my bedroom and made it into a animation studio. A 4x8 piece of table in there and lighting rigs. I really don't know. I slept underneath it, I think, in a mattress, because it was elevated. But so I had boxes upon boxes of yellow and brick and all this stuff, and I was building these sets, and I would go to the FAO Schwartz store uptown and take pictures and recreate these things in my apartment. And there's actually quite a few LED lights that are kind of not really visible actually in some of these contraptions, but I hid battery packs inside a lot of these structures and just all kinds of stuff. That was a lot of fun, that project. I actually still have 2 big boxes with most of that stuff kind of assembled in it somewhere. All the shelves and some of the piping, just in a big pile.
You had a bunch of little mini Lego boxes. Did you have to build all those, or?
Yeah, so that was one of the bigger pain in the butts. So we knew we were going to have boxes because it was supposed to imitate the shelving, and we figured it would be like a 1x3 brick, maybe 2 bricks tall, and they sent me a piece of paper with these broken down boxes printed out that you had to cut out and glue together. But it was a mess, and I'm not very good with scissors. I don't know about you guys.
It's so also really small to work with.
Come by and yeah, I had to have some friends come by and help me cut out these boxes because there was flaps to help it glue. So there was so much cutting that had to get done. So I had to make all these boxes, and then when you wrap the paper around the brick, you have to kind of crease it, and then you get a little bit of a white, the ink kind of gets messed up there a bit. So, they look kind of rough, but they're pretty cute, I think. They had a lot of
character. They were
adorable.
Cute. They were cute. Let's kind of go back up here.
Yeah, I used to go to take my son there when he was little, and yeah, they're not around here anymore. I don't even think my daughter even ever got to go into one of those.
Wow. Yeah, that and Toys R Us now, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, luckily kids have their iPhones to play games on all day now, right?
Yeah, right?
So one of the next ongoing project you did with Lego was the Bric-a-Brac bunch. I think you did around 7 of those, maybe more. One thing I got to give you credit for, which is something unheard of on Lego commissions, your name's in the credits.
Yes, I know.
Yes, that's so awesome. You don't see it much.
I don't know how that happened.
Yeah.
I guess they knew they were going to have it, so they included me, luckily.
That's
that was
awesome.
nice.
That's awesome. That's one of my bigger
funny.
complaints. I love Lego. I think they're the best thing to animate. The best things to watch animated, but they don't give credit to their animators, and it's like, come on.
Yeah, it's true. I think I've seen Dave Pagano's name a few times in some videos. Yeah, probably not many else, actually.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. I'm trying to think. He used a lot of
which is the one I love that was like
the theater one. That one was
Wigs
Out President's Day.
Yeah, I love that one too.
There's so much to love about that one. I mean, another realistic feeling because you feel like you're in the audience, so you're seeing that angle, but then you do the behind the scenes, and then you see all the tricks of what you would normally do in like a real theater, because my son was in theater, so it was so cool to see.
Did you ever do theater in high school?
Yeah, well, in middle school, they didn't have any sort of like video or film things in middle school because you're in middle school, but they had like every year they would do a play, and so I did a little bit of acting back then, and dare I say a little bit of singing. I was Nathan Detroit in Guys and Dolls in my senior year of middle school.
Awesome.
So I had to sing a little bit. But so, and I had because when I was doing it in high school, we had TV programs that I could be in. So, and a lot of those same kids were the theater kids. So I knew a lot of them. But I never did any theater in high school.
Oh, okay.
But,
one of the shots that I liked is when the kite flew into the lighting on the stage, and I was impressed that you actually had barn doors on some of your lighting instruments in the grid. That was cool.
That's so funny. Yeah, I love the little details like that. That's what makes it for me.
That and the colored lights.
That's funny that you noticed that.
I have a theater background, so I kind of think if I go to a play or whatever, half the time I'm looking up at the lights. So.
See, and I love the water scene, where they were on the boat and.
Oh yeah. That
I loved it.
That was so. That was a lot of stuff happening in those shots. I had like the waves moving in the front, and the boat turning around or bending back and forth and things like that. I believe that I used some tricks for that shot too. For those shots where I would like shoot the boat rocking back and forth with no waves in front, and then do the waves and sort of composite those in, but without moving the camera or anything. I would just like put the waves back in the shot with maybe a blue card or a green card behind them to put them in. And I may have cheated and done one cycle and looped it. I may have done that because they do the same.
You got to do that, yeah.
Yeah, they do the same movement over and over again. So with all these projects, especially the later bric-a-brac bunch of videos, I had this problem where they became like 2 minutes long, as opposed so they would give me like maybe a paragraph as the brief. The kids are doing a President's Day show. We see George Washington and his friends in the boat. We see Abe Lincoln and Ben Franklin, and somehow I would like embellish it and make it 2.5 minutes. And that just became kind of a problem too, where like, they wanted things done, and I'm like, well, I don't know why, but I'm making this so long, and but I mean, I just love it. Like the scene where Abe Lincoln's talking, and he's like, you can hear him go,
yeah. I was saying it along with him in my head, so it was kind of funny.
And then like, the camera like pans down the kids, and the kid's yawning. Like I could have just put the camera on the kid and had him yawn, but for some reason I did this like long panning camera move of like, I don't know, I just didn't feel like I could make. Well, I think what it is that I love Lego very much, and I didn't want to give them like inferior product, and when I was younger, I remember watching the Lego animations with Spider-Man and Doc Ock and Han Solo. I think it was like Spite Your Face. Oh yeah, that comes up a lot, I'm sure, on these podcasts.
Oh yeah.
But I remember being like, this is a benchmark. You don't want to. This is high quality. You need to, especially because Lego takes such care in their product and their bricks, that you don't want to be representing their company with some sort of like, not as like lazy video. So I would make them as big and as great as possible.
Yeah, you did a good job with it.
Definitely succeeded.
One of the things about, I guess, the bric-a-brac bunch is a lot of the characters are the children minifigures that don't have moving legs. I'm sure you had some challenges animating some of that. You just have to be able to move their arms and they just slide across the floor. But one of the things I noticed was the curtain call at the end of the President's Day, and it seemed like they were bending at the waist. What trick did you do there?
I'm wondering now, did I just give them bigger legs? I don't think so.
I think they were small. Maybe you pulled it out of its waist a little bit and just tilted.
I'm clicking on it now to look at it. this was a nightmare. So I had a friend who did. He would like do wire removal for movies and commercials and other blemish removal, and I went to college with him, and I would use his talents on a lot of these things. So what I had to do is I put like a wad of clay underneath their feet, and like leaned them all forward.
Okay.
But you know, gravity is a thing, and they'd be falling over constantly, and when you move their arms to like make them do the bow and stuff, everything gets out of alignment, and then there was I'm sure there was like visible wads of clay sticking out the sides of their feet that he had to paint out for me.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, I definitely I didn't give them big legs here. I'm just looking at that again now.
You know, that's we're watching that and you go, wow, this is amazing. And then after you watch it, you go, holy crap, that was a lot of work.
I think there's a third-party company that might make Lego kid legs that will bend and walk, but, you know, Lego doesn't make those.
Right. I wonder why they don't.
I'm not sure.
Maybe they will someday.
Maybe. Last thing... So I've noticed you got a frog. Do you like to animate the Lego frog a lot? It seems. Is this something coming from you or the people commissioning you?
That's all Lego's commission. They want the frog. I give them the frog. They wrote the frog into those scripts.
Oh, okay. Well,
yeah.
It's kind of an interesting thing to animate because it really has no moving parts, but you can definitely roll it around on the stud and give it some character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does the frog appear in like 3 videos maybe?
There were a few. I noticed it. I couldn't tell you how many, but yeah. So you've been associated with the Animators Collective. That's Christopher Gerhardt. Bricks Brought to Life. And were you involved with both of the Rogue One video and the Guardians in the Galaxy Volume 2 in Lego?
Yeah, I did a couple shots for them. And actually, Chris Gerhardt did all the visual effects for that Armageddon commercial.
Okay.
So I work with him whenever I can. He's great.
Yeah, he's really awesome. Perhaps we'd like to speak with him someday. He's one of the best brick filmers in the world for sure.
Yeah, he's great.
Mm-hmm. And he recently animated something with David Pagano, that Godzilla. I don't know if you've seen that. It's only about 15 seconds. It's on David Pickett's YouTube, but it's really incredible.
Oh, cool. I don't think I've seen that.
Have to check that out. But I think he went up into David Pagano's studio and animated that.
That's awesome.
There's some behind-the-scenes stuff, too. David Pagano's got a new series on his YouTube channel about how do you animate that or something like that.
Yeah, it's very helpful.
It's very cool.
Oh, cool. Great.
It's worth taking a look at. Have you met David Pagano?
Yeah, I met him when I was living in New York. I suppose he contacted me because he considers himself, I think, the brick film historian or something like that. He said it once, I forget. But he contacted me, and we met for dinner. And we talked a little bit. He's great. He's a cool guy. I had all these questions. I'm sure I was annoying. But yeah, I've met him. It was a lot of fun.
We got to meet him as well, so yes, and he was a great guy, very patient, and...
Where'd you guys meet?
Brickflix in Raleigh.
Charlotte? Oh,
cool. Was it Raleigh?
I think it's Raleigh, North Carolina, yeah. They don't have the festival anymore, but he was there once, and got to meet him, and he's a real cool guy.
Very cool.
Like a film festival?
Yeah, so that was the only time we got to see our film on a big screen, like in a movie theater, and that was a really neat experience. So that's how I, knew that you must have really enjoyed seeing that with your Egyptian holiday. It's a really surreal moment.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot of fun.
Definitely.
What shots did you do in the Rogue One?
Okay, so I did the shot of them running at the ATs on the beach.
The outside, okay, yeah.
Yes. I did the first shot when she's walking down the hallway, and I did the Star Destroyer shot because I had the old Star Destroyer model built up.
Cool.
I was supposed to have another shot that I built this. It was the other shot inside the Yavin base or whatever it is called. Mm-hmm. But I just couldn't get it animated in time because there was so many characters and stuff. And Kevin Ulrich managed to do that shot at a little bit of a smaller scale to get it done for the deadline. It was a shot where she's like in handcuffs and they're walking across to the other. I mean, I must have watched the shot 100 times to do that project, but you know, the way I work, it's kind of a hindrance, but everything has to be like really well planned out for me. Like, so with these camera moves, I have like this steel bar that the camera kind of like is suspended from and hangs off of it. And on that steel bar, I have basically a big yardstick, a metal yardstick taped or screwed down to it. And I plan out my camera moves that way by finding a start frame and finding my end frame. And then I sort of insert those two numbers into Final Cut. And I do like an ease in and ease out keyframe calculation. And that way I can get the sort of, you know, 0.1, 0.3, 0.5 millimeters or however the measurement is to get it to go up. But so I would be rehearsing the camera moves like over and over again before I did any sort of character animation to make sure I wasn't going to get into a situation where 100 frames in, like, oh, well, what am I doing? They're off the frame or something, you know? So I ended up a bit too long to try to choreograph it all and drop the ball.
So let me see if I understand this right. You just used the Final Cut keyframing just to get a feel for the actual movement, but you weren't using it per se. You were just using it to be inspired of how the actual shot is?
Basically what I do is I have the yardstick that has, so let's say I'll start the camera move at 5 millimeters and end it at 30 millimeters, and I want it to ease in and ease out. I'll make like a square, like a title card or a square image on Final Cut that I can move with keyframes. And I'll set the number of seconds the shot's going to be, and then I'll move the square across the screen from 5 to 30, and that will give you each frame's like number. And then I'll ease out those keyframes and see what the numbers I get, and then I'll take those numbers and apply it to my real yardstick each frame camera move X sheet, you know, my stop motion sheet. So I'll know that at frame 1 it's at position 1, and then frame 2 it's position 1 at 0.02, and frame 3 1.07, and so I'll use the Final Cut's computing power to get the numbers that I need to use to then physically do it with the yardstick.
Wow, that's cool. That's cool. I'll have to listen to this about 4 more times through. But, but wow, that's cool to figure out all
Basically,
your numbers.
The reason why I do that is so I'm not guessing, but B, because I like to do a lot of multi-pass shots. So like in that Lego Club Can't Stop Building video, a lot of the shots I have like I couldn't do all of these characters moving at once. I just don't have the brain power. So I would do the shot one time, moving this section, and then I would do the shot again, moving this section, and then put them together in After Effects. But that meant that the camera move had to be the exact same each time.
Yeah, usually people use a motorized.
Yeah, usually they do. I should probably do that. But that way I would make sure, using the Final Cut keyframe method, that I would be as close to exact as possible with where the, you know, each frame would have to be.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well,
it just drove me crazy.
Can't understand why.
Yeah. So your Can't Stop Building, is that your most recent from Lego that you've worked on?
Yeah, that's probably it is the most recent and probably the last one. Because I took a little too long to get that finished, I think.
Well, it looked like you had about 1 million Lego in that.
Yes. That, like I think I said before, it kind of broke me. I was doing, because I mean, most of these brick films are kind of like one location, more or less. But that one, like, you know, we're going to the moon and we're going over here to school, and, you know, so it just, it took me like weeks to just build a set. And then I'm like rehearsing all the camera moves, and for some reason I said, we'll be moving and we'll have 1,000 things happening in it. And it just, all of a sudden, it was like months and months had gone by, and I'm giving them like a shot every week, and it just became sort of like a, well, finish it up, man, you know, kind of thing.
Well, sometimes being too perfect can get you in trouble.
Yeah, but the
very
end
much so.
result was absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
And where did you shoot? Where did you film that?
I have a little studio in town that's just like kind of like an old store that no one is using. So I built all that stuff in there, and I have some big tables in there. The only problem with the Can't Stop Building video is that, and I think what made it so difficult for me was that the song already existed, and I only had a very specific amount of frames that I could do for each shot. So I had to make sure that everything that had to get accomplished in that shot was going to finish in that many frames. So I had to keep rehearsing make sure this character could get from here to there, make sure the camera can get from here to there. But so as a result, like, it's very fast. And I would love to do a extended version where I can let some of the shots breathe a bit, and because before you know it, the shot's over, and then I spent 2 hours designing the shrubbery in front of that house. You can't really even see it, things like that. But that was I love that video. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah, I can definitely one of ours too.
Video.
The clouds. I love the clouds. They're amazing.
And you put those in post. Does that sound correct?
Yes, the clouds I definitely shot and then composited them in. That video had by far the most compositing I've ever done. Like, for instance, in the first shot, when it's dollying down the streets, I would shoot like the front. There's like a couple blocks you can see, a couple street blocks. I would shoot the first block section with the people moving around there in one pass, and then I would shoot the cars in another pass, and then I would shoot like the background buildings in another pass, and have to assemble all these camera moves together. But I didn't have a motor or anything, so they're all kind of slightly imperfect. So I'd have to basically go frame by frame and make sure everything was lining up, and just like I had to have a big green card that I'd have to insert for every frame to make sure I can get a good outline to cut out these buildings and things like that. It was just like a lot of work.
Wow. I know one of the parts that looked crazy is when everything was being built, I guess in the city, just a little at a time, and it just starts coming together. That must have taken forever to do that shot.
Yeah, it did, and I'm trying to remember now if I did it backwards. I probably did it backwards.
That would seem the logical thing to do, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, backwards. I'm just taking a look now.
But that's just an insane amount of sets and pieces, and wow.
And of course, the problem with my technique, with my lighting, is that I use a lot of light. I use like thousands and thousands of watts of light, and it gets very hot. And as a result, sometimes the Lego base plates sort of warp a little bit.
Oh, wow.
So let's say you're doing the scene and you like turn the lights off to like go get some lunch or something. When you come back and things have cooled down, the base plate has slightly shifted.
Oh my.
And when you're doing like a macro close-up shot, you can't do that. So you really have to do everything in like one sitting. So, you would spend 5 days setting it up and choreographing it, and then you'd get some sleep, and then you would try to do it all in like a 48-hour stretch where you're just, and of course, because like this shot with the buildings being built, it's an 8-foot table, 8 foot by 8 foot square, table.
Wow.
So to get access to the buildings like in the middle, I had to like get on top of the table.
Ooh.
And like do my work and not hit anything and get off the table and take the picture. So like, you got like stud marks on your hands from pressing onto the base plates to hold your weight. And it's just,
so you took stepping on Lego to a whole new level.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
100 times in 48 hours, it's just,
wow.
Well, kudos for that.
Yeah, totally.
It was fun.
Wow.
Lego just needs to give you some time to let you do your stuff because it's worth it.
It totally.
Yeah. I think they sort of want more content as opposed to like really high quality things, so they want to have things for their channel,
Cool.
But what's so funny about this video in particular too, and with all these videos, is that I'm very particular like about imperfections in the brick and like dust and any sort of non-Lego stuff being like any dirt. And I hired a bunch of my friends from school to like go through Photoshop frame by frame, and if there's like dust or anything, like a lot of times in the bric-a-brac bunch, their shirts would have slight misprintings, which aren't really visible when you're just playing with them, but when you're shooting them up close, you can see a little coloring is off. So I have them fix all that stuff, and what's just so funny is that I paid a lot of money to do that, whereas the Lego movie that they made, they paid a lot of money to add dust and to add imperfections and to, mess things up. And it's like, what are we doing here?
We always have dust on our things that you don't take out.
Well, I try to dust it the best I can, and with my personal projects, I don't really sweat it as much as when I'm doing commission stuff. But I know I've gone in and had to Photoshop out some little strings of hair or whatever, dust hairs.
Yes, exactly.
It's no fun.
But not on our stuff, though. We just kind of let that fly.
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, I try my best. It's hard.
It adds some character to it, and it's like the Wes Anderson movies where you can see the imperfections in the stop motion, and, otherwise just make it with CGI if you're going to be that specific about it.
True. Mm-hmm. I want to jump to that Santa's Workshop one that I loved so much.
Great, yeah, I love that one too.
Which one's that?
I don't know what it's called. I just know I loved it. I don't remember names of things. The one where the Santa was in the workshop and the stained glass windows that I thought were so beautiful.
It just goes into the scenic design, yeah.
And I was like, how did he do that? It's like, did he put lights on that? And he's like, he just had to show me the pieces that you use. I'm like, we need to do that. It was so beautiful.
Well, what's really cool, so I would basically design all of these sets in the Lego Digital Designer program. So I would spend a week or at least 2 weeks usually designing these, oftentimes like 10,000 at least piece sets.
Oh my goodness.
And so I knew that they had those 1x2 translucent colored bricks. And so then what I would do is I would get my parts list and I would drive up to Enfield, Connecticut for an afternoon and see what they had in stock at their model builder's workshop. So they had like a back room with like buckets, I guess you'd call them, just full of brick, everything you need, like, 1x2 white, 1x2 red, I mean, everything. And so I found a nice bucket that I'm sure they don't use very much because how often do you need that color brick? So I was able to get a bunch of handfuls of those translucent colored bricks to put in there. But I had a great time going back into those stock rooms and everything.
I'll bet.
It was really cool.
I think it'd be cool to make a stained glass.
The issue is that they would only really have like brick and plates, and a lot of times you need like tile and strange 1x1 little pieces and stuff like that. So I'd have to go on, Bricklink and make like 500 orders to get all this stuff to make sure I had all these pieces, which also probably was overkill for what was happening here. Like I didn't need to go to this effort, I suppose, but I couldn't do it any other way,
Just curious if you have a preference over, I mean, you're so good at brick filming and the cinematography work. I mean, are you both passionate about both of them equally, like them for different reasons, like one more than the other?
Well, definitely for different reasons I like them. Something I say sometimes is like when you're on a movie set and you're doing a scene with actors, you can say when the take's over, like, okay, now, walk off the shot. And if it's like a spontaneous idea and the actor can do it and it takes 5 seconds. If you want to do that with Legos, it takes you half the day, so it's a different kind of, there's not a lot of improvisation and not a lot of collaboration. And, I guess you work together when you do your projects, but I was basically by myself in a room full of toys and plastic just for months at a time. And it's not really fun at that point. It becomes kind of like sad, almost kind of stressful. Whereas when you're on a movie set and you got all these people and everyone's trying to make it work, it's a lot more dynamic and
a lot more social.
Yeah, a lot more social. Although with the Lego stuff, you can do way bigger things for less money. Where can you get a big Santa Claus's workshop for a small film or something? It would cost a lot of money. So I do like that aspect of it, that you can create huge scenes for small people.
Right. No, Dave does the same as you. I mean, he's the only one that animates, so he's in the basement by himself animating. And
oh, yeah.
And I was working professionally for 2 years doing it for Oyo Sports, making all their videos, and it was wonderful, and I'd do it again in a heartbeat. But at the same time, you working by yourself, it gets kind of lonely.
It does.
You know, that's when I started listening to a lot of podcasts at that point, and I kind of fell in love with the format. But you're by yourself in the dark, and you're in the dark. Mostly. Sometimes you got a bright set, but a lot of times you have to get it pretty dark in there, and it can be lonely. And once I'm back doing similar work that I was doing before I started doing professional brick filming. And one of the things I like about being back in the real world is you're with people all the time, and unless I came up out of the dungeon or the basement to see Kim, I was pretty much by myself.
Yeah. And then if Kim wants to come down and say hello, you can't come down. There's too much light. Get out the door.
I have a little corner for her to sit in.
Yeah, right.
And sometimes
exactly.
I would stay down there, keep him company.
Do you have one of those keypad controllers for Dragon Frame? How far do you keep that away from your camera when you actually take the picture?
Good question. Every shot's kind of different. That keypad that I have, I got it back in 2007 when I did the Egyptian holiday, and that thing has fallen off my desk so many times that it's like totally broken, but it still works. Usually, it's different. Sometimes I actually just use my laptop and press enter on it, and I go over to the screen and I kind of make sure I have to go back and forth 10 times to make sure everything's okay. But usually I'll keep the keypad sort of. So let's say I'm animating over here and I have to go walk away because my reflection will affect the frame. I keep the keypad somewhere on that walk that I can just kind of like tap it and get out of the way and then come back and check, so it's all over the place. And my friend actually just got Dragon for the first time, and they now have a Bluetooth keypad.
I think I've seen that.
I have like a 12-foot wire, so I used to always like trip on it, and but it's pretty cool that they have now.
I even extended mine.
Oh, really? That's awesome.
Yeah, I like to. Sometimes I'll shoot where I'll be close up if I've got just a ton of light on the set. Yeah. But if I'm worried about me reflecting anything, I'm about 6 feet away when I hit the enter button.
Great.
And it seems to help. A lot of times I don't even worry about wearing a black shirt. I'm just so far away. But there's been a couple of times where I've animated and I've just hovered over it, and I just had so much light it didn't give me bad flicker.
I always wanted like a sort of hip holster for it that I could kind of like just smack my thumb against it at my hip.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah. Never did that.
Good invention idea.
Yeah. I thought it'd be kind of funny.
So are you working on anything now? Any future projects?
In terms of like Lego stuff, not really. Now I'm sort of working with dealing with how do I live a life when I have so much Lego everywhere. It's become sort of a situation because, for instance, in the Can't Stop Building video, there's like the moon set, which was like just boxes upon boxes of gray bricks. And like, what do you do with that afterwards? So I've got so much Legos, so I'm trying to like go through it and sort of sort it, and I try to make heads or tails of it. That's what I do with Legos now, basically. It's like just going through it all. But I have some live action work that I'm working on. My friend is shooting a feature film that I'm going to do the cinematography for him in September. And I'm trying to get back into making my own films now. That's what I really want to do, is make my own films. And I haven't had the time because when you do a Lego project, it's all of a sudden like months of your life are taken up. So hopefully now I can have some free time and make some real films and things like that.
Well, that's awesome.
Well, keep us in the loop when you make a live action or anything that might not be on your YouTube channel. We're subscribed, so we'll see all that stuff. But any of the other stuff, please keep us in the loop.
Yeah.
Oh, of course I will.
Enjoy watching.
I really wish that I would do more Lego stuff because it's like the community's great and everybody always gets a smile on their face when they watch some Lego stuff. So, I had a couple ideas for things. Like I think there's a video I uploaded of like a car driving with headlights on or something like that.
Yeah, I did notice that. That was awesome.
Yeah, and I like the way that looks, and I always wanted to do something that's kind of like another original story of mine. Like Egyptian Holiday was, I guess you'd say, an original story.
Definitely.
Since the beginning, I wanted to do a big Ice Planet movie. Like for one Christmas or a couple years ago, I went on eBay and I ordered all the Ice Planet sets, the orange chainsaw and the orange sets and stuff. I just think they're so cool. So I've always wanted to do a big Ice Planet film, but who has time for making a huge Ice Planet film,
Yeah. Well, get a good script written out, get some great voice actors, and I'm sure a few years down the road there'll be something else awesome, brick film related, and definitely looking forward to the live action stuff. So,
yeah. I mean, I know we've taken up a lot of your time, and you just have so many wonderful things to talk about, and it's been really fun for us to get to know you and hear all your stories. You gave some amazing tips and tricks, which for brick filmers who needs to cut down on time, that is a huge plus.
Cool. I hope they were understandable when you don't have visuals to describe it. It's kind of hard to know what you're talking about.
Well, the brick filmers all will be like, oh, wow, I didn't think about that. That's a great idea. So very helpful.
Cool. I hope so. That's great.
Yeah,
again,
definitely.
thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, we really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And
thank you very much for having me.
Looking forward to all the rest of your work. You are very talented. You should be proud of everything that you've done, Spencer, and we definitely look forward to all the rest of your work.
Thank you so much. That means a lot.
All right. Well, enjoy have a great weekend. It's Friday. I forgot.
Yes, it is. You guys too. Down there in the hot
and
Georgia.
Hopefully we can talk to you again sometime. We'd love it.
Great. Me too. That sounds awesome.
All
Thanks
right,
again.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Okay,
Bye. Thanks so much to Spencer for spending so much time with us, and thanks to everyone who's stuck with us through this entire podcast. Please check out our sponsors and partners on the Brick Filmers Guild homepage, and don't forget to check out Spencer's amazing brick films on his YouTube channel. We want to give a huge thank you to our Patreon supporters, Spuggastew, Something's Awry Productions, Frame 5 Studios, Dude Brick, Mind Game Studios, DT98 Films, Dark Dragon Films, Forest Fire 101, and Sanjira. You guys are amazing, and we just can't thank you enough. If you would like to sponsor one of our podcasts, please contact me through one of our social media sites. We would like to thank Kevin MacLeod for his wonderful music, which we use for our podcasts and in our brick films. If you're listening to this podcast on iTunes, please rate and comment. We'd really appreciate that. So, until next time, bye y'all.